You're listening to AMI Audiobook Review on AMI Audio. I'm Jacob Szymanski. If you're both an avid Leafs fan and chronically online, you're pretty much guaranteed to already be familiar with today's guest. Producer Nisrin Abdelmajid is here with us from Mississauga. Niz, thank you so much for setting this up. Can you help me tee up today's interview?
Of course. Steve Dangle Glynn is a hockey analyst, broadcaster, author, and the host of the popular Steve Dangle Podcast. He has a YouTube channel where he uploads post-game reaction videos after every single Toronto Maple Leafs game. He's also a co-founder of SDPN, a popular sports podcast network. Today, he's putting on his author hat, and October 15th was his official release date for his second published book, Hockey Rants and Raves. So here's the synopsis. The hottest takes and biggest beefs about hockey from the wildly popular podcaster and YouTuber. Who would be on the Mount Rushmore of goalies? Is Gretzky the greatest player of all time? What are the most embarrassing Leaf losses of all time? Why would you choose to play in a small market? Steve Dangle Glynn was already a popular talking head on Sportsnet the night the Leafs lost to their own backup goalie and Zamboni driver, but his fandom skyrocketed after his rant following the hilarious mishap gained 1 million views on YouTube. Dangle is well-known as a long-suffering Leafs fan, but he's more than just that. He shares his rants and opinions about all teams across the NHL, directing his laser focus onto hockey's greatest arguments, from the best players of all time to the worst trades to the most embarrassing Leafs losses. From one of the most unique voices in hockey, Hockey Rants and Raves is packed with passionate, honest, and often humorous takes on all things hockey, required reading for all fans of the game. We're really looking forward to having you on.
Niz, thank you so much. Steve Dangle, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for making time.
I don't think I want to talk. I think I just want to let Niz do it. I couldn't do a better job than that. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you very much.
That was a great intro. Now, Steve, I don't think you would have any issue talking because that's what you do all day. And I've been watching your videos and your podcast like on and off for the past 5 years. And it's so cool to finally get to pick your brain on this latest book, Hockey Rants and Raves. And it's basically an essay collection. You call it Rants and Raves, but it's basically like short essays. And we already mentioned a few of the topics, like who would be on the Mount Rushmore of goalies, and is Gretzky the greatest player of all time? But what other topics are you ranting/raving in this book? What can we expect?
Yeah, not everything is I think there's a negative connotation with ranting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like something bad has happened, like you lost to one of your own employees. Man, the day after David Ayres beat the Leafs, my cousin texted me that his Friday night beer league goalie beat the Leafs. He played with him. And I think he had played with him like less than a week beforehand. It's unbelievable. But what we can expect from this book is not just be ranting about what ails the game or what fans are often wrong about. There's also like some love letters in there. Like I love hockey more than I ever have. So it's not just about like what ails the sport. It's raving about how much I love it. Don't get me wrong. There's some people I have in my crosshairs, like the one book or the one chapter in the book that I used it as my little run in the field. I probably had the most fun with it. Was the worst type of NHL video game players to play with and against. That one, there was years of frustration there. All the people who cheered against women's hockey and said it was never going to work, wrote them a nice eulogy because they lost. They have definitively lost. It's dead and buried in the ground. That league is taken off and everything's great. But I think the essence of the book is, it's not necessarily about being right or wrong. Being the loudest talking head in the room. It's about the coffee shop, the bar, the quintessential sports argument with your friends and how to have it without, being a jerk and having fun with it.
it kind of feels like you're preparing for those conversations at a bar. Like you came fully prepared. You've fully laid out all your arguments. And there's quite a few chapters that touch on things that people would argue about, like who's the greatest goalie of all time? Who's the greatest player of all time? Like, can you transplant a player from today, like from 40, 50 years ago, and transplant them in today's game and see how they would do? That's always a big topic of discussion now. Like there's a lot of hot takes here, I'd argue. Are you already getting flamed online for some of your takes here?
Not yet. Not yet. I had a buddy who I gave a book to early, and he's like, "Oh, I wanted to throw it across the room when I was reading Goalie Mount Rushmore," and I didn't ask why, because I know everyone's going to have their own answer. One thing I know, everyone's going to have their own opinion about this, and that's wonderful, and I'm happy to hear them all. But I will say this: I researched the heck out of this book. So if you're going to have an argument that convinces me something I wrote shouldn't have been in there, you better come ready, come prepared.
Were there any rants or raves that you left out of the book? And if so, like, what were the reasons?
Yeah, well, all the ones I haven't had yet. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always like, they're not going to blow a 3-1 lead to Montreal. They're not going to lose to one of their own employees. So I'm sure there's some Leafs rants. They'll provide me ammo. A lot went into this. I can't. There isn't one that sticks out. There isn't one that I had to axe from the book because it was too controversial. The publisher was pretty good about that. Actually, they never flagged anything that they thought crossed the line. Like the fighting in hockey one, I think is pretty fiery, and I like that one because it's an entirely hypocritical chapter about a hypocritical subject. Like I think a lot of hockey fans, you don't have to admit it to me, you don't have to admit it to your friends, but privately at home, if you really sit and meditate on it, we're all a little hypocritical when it comes to fighting in hockey. So all the good stuff is in there. Nothing got left on the cutting room floor.
And I appreciate that you say that there's a negative connotation around ranting, but what it really is just a passionate exclamation of your opinions, right? And there's really not that much difference between a rant and a rave when you think about it. And one thing that you do, a part of a chapter that I really appreciated was when you talk about how awesome it is to be in the building, to actually see a game in person, and like the small details, like a really successful penalty kill, but not the type where they stop everything in the neutral zone, the type where they're dog tired and it's like, by all means, like it's not going well, but it really is like one of the most awesome things you see in hockey, and your love of the sport really comes through, which honestly, Steve, like with your brand, as a dude who gets a ton of views when the Leafs are doing terrible and you're like seemingly kind of miserable, it's great to see that you'd still have the love for hockey.
Yeah, like I keep getting told by people like business is booming for me when they lose. I'll eat Kraft dinner for a year or something. I'll figure it out. Like what if business wasn't booming and they actually won? I think business kind of grinds to a halt when the team I cover stops playing games. So I'd love it if they made it to the Stanley Cup final one day. But yeah, like one thing I wondered when I was younger is, I've seen some people who have been in the industry for a while, almost become like jaded or take working in sports for granted, take working in hockey for granted. And my love for it's only growing. So I hope that shines through in the book. And if I'm passionate about something wrong with the sport, something that I would like to see changed, it's because I care. There are plenty of other things that I don't like, that I don't bother to talk about because I don't care. Hockey's not one of them.
I've seen videos of yours where you go on shockingly coherent rants in a single take. And I'm wondering if you've had that type of like flow state, creative flow state in your writing, like in that process, like were there certain rants that just flew off the pen, if you will?
There were some that came a little easier than others, like Goalie Mount Rushmore, for example, that was really research heavy. That was difficult. The Gretzky one, very difficult. The NHL one, that flowed like water. That was a rant that I had locked in the chamber, and it was just my first time actually putting pen to paper. Fighting in hockey was an interesting one because it keeps going back and forth. There's no beginning, middle, or end. I'm really interested to see how people like that one, because it doesn't necessarily take a definitive take. But it's difficult to write the way it is to talk, right? Like just out loud. If only it were that easy. Like the Leafs lose Game 7 in Montreal in 2021. I went for 25 minutes straight, no cuts.
Right.
And I don't really remember what I said. I didn't know right after it. I even thought to myself, like, oh, this feels like it's a little long. This is maybe 13, 14 minutes. Ended up being 25.
Twice as long.
Yeah. And one thing I was told to try is dictate the book. And I think I needed to cater to the book more than the book needed to cater to me. It's a different medium, right? So I had to slow things down a little bit. You can't use tone, and you can't use a change in volume, and you can't use a funny facial expression, or your hands, which was difficult for me as a half Italian. You have to convey yourself in words, right? So I always love the challenge of writing a book, because it's not necessarily what I'm used to.
You could, if you wanted to, like dictate the book, but then at that point you might as well just record a video, right?
Yeah, I might as well record a video, but also I think a lot of Canadians have this problem. Apparently, when I'm really comfortable, I just talk like a total hoser. And Siri never understands what the heck I'm saying. And I feel like I speak the King's English pretty well, but Siri disagrees.
Yeah, that's Canadians for you. We really don't think we have an accent.
No, but the amount of texts where the response is just, what? Because I didn't type it and I just dictated it. People must think I'm the biggest donkey.
Well, if people want to hear your hoser accent, then they can listen to the audiobook, which you narrated yourself. How was that experience?
Oh, that was fun. I really I like reading my own stuff. This is my second audiobook. I like, it's funny. I have these ideas in my head, and like I said, I don't get to use the change in inflection and volume and all that. But then when the audiobook comes around, it's my turn to kind of put a little bit extra into it. And I always feel when the author is reading their own work, it's almost like you're getting the truly complete version of that thing, right? It's like I'm using my voice to bring life to the work that I wasn't able to put on paper. Please buy it. I need you to buy it, because on the second day out of 3 where I recorded it, I accidentally parked on the wrong side of the road and my car got towed. So, and it was in Toronto, so it was pretty expensive. So please buy the audiobook.
Wow, it took one for the team. I heard at one point that you actually got sick while recording it. Is that true?
I did. I tried to mask it as well as I could. Day 1, I was mostly fine. By the end of it, I was starting to lose my voice a little bit, but I thought that was just talking. Day 2, I was like, I think I'm sick here. And then I had to go walk in the rain to go get my car out of the impound lot. And then day 3, I was dealing with the consequences of that. So I had like 5 hot liquids on the go at any given time, a bunch of different teas and coffees with coconut oil and coconut milk in it. I always find that helps with a sore throat, sore chest, water.
In talking to a bunch of narrators on the show, one thing you find out is that they all have their special concoctions for what they drink while they read, because I mean, your voice is your tool, right? But that also applies to broadcasters like you. I know some people say that the ultimate thing to clean up your voice is a green apple. A very sour green apple is the trick, or hot green tea.
See, the green, I kind of get it. Like the acid of it I could see that.
It makes your voice crispy, and it really gets rid of the cotton mouth, the sticky saliva-y sound that you hear when you're a little too close to the microphone and a little nervous.
Yeah, the good old phlegms. Yeah. There's
the phlegms.
Yeah, there's a lot of tricks. But what was kind of funny, like I don't think it sounds bad. If it was, they'd be like, Steve, re-record it, you idiot.
That's what I was gonna ask. Like, did it sound like you were sick at any point?
I think it sounded good, but in between takes, I sounded like death. But what I did find funny was the next week when I was better, I had to re-record a few things, and I had to sort of talk a certain way because my voice was like a little too clean. It was a little too clear, so I had to add a little bit of gravel.
Did you in writing the book, like obviously at some point in the process you have to lock the words in, you can't make any modifications anymore. So while you're narrating your book, were you coming across sections like, hey, can I change this? I actually changed my mind. And if, like, were you allowed to do that?
For the most part, HarperCollins wanted me to stick to the script, but there were a couple moments like where, I just misspoke. Like I said, David Ayres won for the Leafs, which he obviously didn't. He won against. But it's in a chapter that's all about him winning against the Leafs. So hopefully people notice that. But the one that I thought was funniest was there were a couple times where I had to make little edits about guys on the Florida Panthers who had never won a cup. And I was like, maybe one day they'll do it. And
that's funny.
They had done it. They had won. And another was, there's a chapter where I wrote about, it's basically a sales pitch, 2 or 3 chapters on every NHL, or sorry, not 2 or 3 chapters, 2 or 3 paragraphs on every NHL team and why you should cheer for them. And for the Vegas Golden Knights, I was like, you know what? If you're a first-time Golden Knights fan, you should buy a Jonathan Marchessault jersey. And I didn't know when I had submitted the manuscript that he wouldn't re-sign with the Vegas Golden Knights and he would end up going to Nashville. So that was one where I was like, ooh, I don't want to lead people astray. Let me maybe get another crack at that one.
Oh, wait, so does that mean that in the audiobook, you basically make corrections that aren't present in the print book?
There's a couple. There's not very many, but there's a handful. Like for that one, I had to be like, edit. He signed with Nashville, so never mind.
Oh, okay. It's like in addition. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
You're listening to AMI Audiobook Review. I'm Jacob Szymanski, and right now I'm talking to Steve Dangle Glynn, the author of Hockey, Rants and Raves. Steve, I want to back up to something we were talking about earlier, and the different chapters in your book. And one of those chapters that really caught my attention was the top 4 most humiliating Leafs losses. Why not write about the 4 best Leafs wins?
Because I was born in 1988 and I don't know if I could do it. Listen, I could. I can promise you no one would care. Like not nearly as much. Wendell Clark's hat trick game against the LA Kings, you could talk about that. They lost that series. You know what I mean? There are so many games in recent memory that I hold near and dear to my heart, and I love. Kapanen's double OT winner against the Capitals, Bozak's OT winner against the Capitals the next game. They lost that series, and so it kind of kills it. the 4 Leaf losses I saw as a chapter where everyone gets something out of it. Leaf fans will get a little bit of therapy out of it, maybe some closure, maybe a little catharsis. And, fans of the 31 other teams, they're very often like, oh, shut up about the Leafs. Oh, wait, you're talking about them losing? All right, bring it on. I want to hear about it. So that's why I thought that was the best way to go about it.
Yeah, basically you're giving people what they want, which is you talking about your team losing and being humiliated. Now, why is that? Like, your videos tend to get so many more views when it's the Leafs losing, and it's almost become your brand as like the guy who passionately laments his team being cursed. Why do you think people like to watch that?
I think there's a few things there. Number one, there's definitely Schadenfreude involved. So instead of it being a pool of Leaf fans, it's everyone else. Like, let's all go point and laugh at the sad clown. But I think, I couldn't tell you if the loss videos are more entertaining. People seem to say they are. I try to make them both equally entertaining, the wins and the losses. But I think Leaf fans especially, they come to my stuff because sometimes they don't know how to feel. And when they win, that's easy. You know how to feel. They won. They scored more goals than the other team. I feel happy. Hooray. When they lose, they feel bad and they don't like it. But they're also mature and rational enough to be like, well, you're not going to win all 82 games in the regular season. So how bad is this one? And sometimes they'll come to my channel and I'll be like, not that bad. It's okay. I didn't like this, and this, but it's not that bad. Sometimes it doesn't need to be a loss to a 42-year-old Zamboni driver. It doesn't need to be a season-ending loss in the playoffs. Sometimes a loss comes, falls in your lap in the middle of October against a team that should be in last place, and you're just like, what is that? What is this? Or even sometimes, they win the game, but some player got hurt and they want to know how to feel about it. How screwed is the team? Who's going to replace this guy? So I think there's just more questions attached to a loss than a win.
Like, it's more meaty in terms of content. Like, you just have more to talk about during a loss, because when you win, it's like, great, things are working, keep trucking along. But like, when you lose, you need to do something about it. As a fan, you can't do anything about it, but you can be sad about it.
Well, they win. If you look ahead to next game, you're just like, all right, keep it up. Good job. But they lose. It's obviously something needs to change. Some of my favorites that fans go to war over is like, take the 1-0 season opening loss against Montreal, for example. They lose 1-0. They get shut out, but they outshot Montreal 47-27. And a lot of hockey people would be like, no, there's nothing you need to change about that game. They're fine. And if you said that after that game, you'd look pretty smart because they've won their 2 games since. But again, no one, especially when you lose to like a historic rival like that, like Montreal, and you've been waiting for the beginning of the season for months, no one wants to hear, hey, calm down, everything's fine.
Yeah.
Don't tell me everything's fine. They got shut out by a team that's supposed to stink. Stuff like that.
And isn't that what being a fan is all about? Is to strongly care about everything. Like why would you bother watching if you didn't care, right? It's an oxymoron. Now, you started your channel in 2007.
That's right.
And I don't want to understate the effect of Schadenfreude when people watch your videos, because just in the comments on Reddit, on YouTube, on Twitter, like it's palpable. And when you started back in 2007, like, you've had a long trajectory up until now, 2024. Was there like like a process for you to accept that this was your position in media, especially like Toronto Leafs media?
Kind of. I mean, like, yeah, I obsess over the numbers, and it's pretty hard to ignore that certain videos do better than others. And, when I sort of established my place in this fandom, I see the numbers go up and up and up, and I have a good idea of what an average video is versus what a special video is. I have a really good sense of, before I'm about to shoot a video, before the game's even done, really, I have a pretty good sense of, oh, this is a special one, and people want to hear about this one. And, I still get the butterflies and I get a little nervous before shooting, a quote unquote average video. But when it's a big one, there's a pressure to that. There's a terror to that. And it's a pressure to rise to the moment. Am I going to say something that's going to get me in trouble? Am I, how do I feel about this? Okay, that's how I feel. Are people going to like that? That's how I feel. There's a lot of, it's my pressure doesn't begin until the game's done. So, you're a player and you're on that huge stage in front of all those people and everyone watching on TV. My stage starts after, and there's a jump, we keep going back to David Ayers, but like that has never happened before. That's a Disney movie come to life. And, if my average video gets 50,000 views, which is a lot, and I would have killed for, when I started doing these videos, that video is at like 1.2, 1.3 million now. Consistently throughout the summer, over the last 4 or 5 summers, it's been one of the top 5 viewed videos on my channel, like on a month to month basis, like half a decade later. So, I'm sitting in front of the camera before turning it on and going, everyone's watching this. Like, I think some are watched by LFR fans, then something big will happen with the Leafs, and then it's Leaf fans, so it's not just people who are LFR fans. Then it's fans of other teams jump in, and then there's something like that happens, and it's everyone. Whether they actually like hockey or not. They're just, this guy's team lost in the most humiliating way possible. I bet he's going to lose his mind. And there's a curiosity that comes with that.
And I think you've embraced it at this point, or at least it's very entertaining. I know I watch those videos and I look forward to them when the Leafs humiliate themselves. But this book that you published just yesterday, Hockey Rants and Raves, you probably had the same, maybe not to the David Ayers extent, but this like a similar amount of pressure knowing that people are going to read it and have opinions, right? And I'm wondering, as someone who's thrown the hat into writing books about hockey, what are your favorite hockey books?
Ooh. Well, here, first to talk about the pressure of the book. I think when you make content on the internet, there's a comfort in most of the people who watch this are people who already watch my stuff, right? With a book, there's the added pressure of someone's going to stumble across this and buy it just because it's got the word hockey in it. And I don't want that person to come away and think that book sucked. You know what I mean? Like, to me, a victory isn't someone buying the book, it's someone enjoying it. Best hockey books? Boy, Burke's Law by Brian Burke is so good. Mm-hmm. Really, really, like, I don't know if there's a better book in hockey about how the sausage is made. It's prototypically Burke. It's really, really funny. Like, he records his own audiobook too. It's really, really funny hearing him swear. His insights on Gary Bettman, who is just a consistently mystifying figure in the sport. Some of the stories from when he was with the Department of Player Safety, like I can't help but like kind of smile and laugh when I'm thinking about it. And there's also some like really powerful things involving tragedy as well with that book. And I don't know if this answer counts, but Beartown. It's a novel about junior hockey culture in Sweden. I think they made a TV series about it, and I know there's a sequel. I haven't gotten around to the sequel yet, but the original is it's pretty heavy content matter, but very enjoyable novel.
I'll throw in The Game by Ken Dryden. He's a real student of the game. It's
Yep.
a pretty lengthy one, but he's very analytical in how he talks about hockey, but like what it feels like to travel, what it feels like to let in a bunch of goals, like how the crowds can be very different. And he's extremely articulate and like shockingly academic in the way that he writes it, but it's I think it's timeless in a way.
Well, I did some research on Ken Dryden for my book, and I'd like to know what the heck he knows about allowing a bunch of goals. He's one of the best goalies ever, and that's one of the most mind-blowing stats that I came across in my research was his record, his career high for losses in a season was 10. He is unbelievable. He's an unbelievable goaltender.
And in the chapter where you talk about the best player of all time, you start by saying it's obviously Gretzky, and here are all the other candidates and how they're not even close to Gretzky. I thought that approach was really funny. But Steve, we're all out of time. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. This is great. And good luck with the release of your book.
Thank you very much. Happy reading.
That was Steve Dangle Glynn, podcaster, YouTuber, professional Leafs fan, and the author of Hockey, Rants and Raves. Available now wherever you listen to audiobooks. That's all the time for this edition of AMI Audiobook Review. If you missed any of the conversation from the past hour, you can listen to a repeat of AMI Today on AMI Audio every 8 hours. The show is also available on your favorite podcast platforms. Plus, you can watch the show on YouTube right after it ends. Thanks for joining us on AMI Today. I'm your host, Jacob Szymanski. Have a good one.